If you've watched a review of a wireless mic system in the last couple of years, you've probably heard a comment like this. I would still love to see these with a matte finish and less obvious branding on them. Well, Hollyland listened to all of those comments and came up with an answer: the Lark M2S. It retains the simple-to-use features and affordable price of their popular Lark M2 kit, but they redesigned the mic transmitter to be discreet and as small as possible with no visible branding or lights. But they may have solved one problem and created another one. Let's take a closer look. Before we dive in, I want to mention that Hollyland did not send me the Lark M2S, I purchased it myself. I do have a couple affiliate links in the description if you're interested in picking up the M2S or any of the other mics that we're going to talk about and you'd like to support this channel. All right, to get started, let's talk about what you get with the M2S. The audio that you're hearing right now is the M2S 3.5mm output running into my Panasonic Lumix S5 II, recording in 24-bit at 48 kilohertz. No post-processing has been applied other than normalizing the level to -16 LUFS, and I did use a limiter to prevent clipping. I will give you a processed sample in just a little bit so you can hear how it cleans up. The Lark M2S is available in a few different kits. The one I purchased here comes with a tiny USB-C receiver for use with smartphones, tablets, and computers, as well as the camera receiver, which has a 3.5mm output and a USB output. It comes with two transmitters, the charging case for everything, wind muffs for the transmitters, a USB cable, a 3.5mm TRS cable, and a carrying pouch. The cheapest kit, as you would probably guess, is the one with just the USB receiver, which is $119, and the most expensive one is the one that comes with all of the receivers, which is $159. The audio conversion is 24-bit with a 48 kilohertz sample rate, and I will put up the rest of the audio specs here on the screen so you can check them out. The transmitter battery life is up to 9 hours, and the camera receiver is up to 8.5 hours. The USB receivers are powered by whatever device you plug them into, and they don't have a built-in battery. They do, however, have a USB-C power pass-through port, so you can keep your phone charged while using them. The transmitters weigh only 7 grams, and they have a titanium clip that holds the mic in place so that the little microphone capsule is the only thing visible, while the larger part of the transmitter with the indicator light and the control button, as well as all of the internal electronics, that stays concealed. The single button powers the transmitter on and off, initiates pairing mode when you hold it down, and it also turns the noise cancellation on and off with a quick press. The stated range of the transmitter is up to 300 meters or 1,000 feet from the receiver. The camera receiver is plastic and it has a small dial with 3 output gain levels and a cold shoe mount. The battery life of the receiver, as I mentioned, is 8.5 hours. Hollyland states you can get up to 30 hours of total use time when you recharge the transmitters and receiver in the charging case before you would need to recharge the case and everything else. Now, there are some settings you can control in the Hollyland Lark Sound app when you have the receiver connected to your device via the USB receiver. These settings include the recording mode, which is mono or stereo, and the stereo mode does work over USB, meaning you can record each microphone separately onto the left and right channels using the USB receiver. In the app, you also have the noise cancellation setting, which is either high or low. Once you set it to high or low in here, that's the level it will use when you turn the noise cancellation on or off using the buttons on either the transmitter or the receiver. You can't change it to high or low using the transmitter and receiver. You can only do that in the app. You can also control the gain level, turn on or off your phone's speaker playback, and the power timeout setting. There's even a custom setting feature that allows you to do a few different things with the receiver and the transmitters as far as how they behave when you press the buttons. For example, you can set it to identify transmitter 1 and transmitter 2 with different LED colors when you double press the button in case you really need to know which one's number 1 and which one's number 2. And of course, you can also update the firmware using the app as well, which I did. There was an immediate firmware update available right after I received it and powered it on, and it worked just fine. So how does the Lark M2S sound with everybody's favorite pocket-sized travel gimbal camera, the DJI Pocket 3? I'm in the car, which is not the greatest environment for capturing great dialogue because of the deep, boomy, terrible sound that you usually get, kind of like you're in a submarine or something. And here is how it's sounding compared to the built-in microphone on the Pocket 3. Here's how that sounds in the car in this environment compared to the Lark M2S. Now to do this, I've got the little USB-C receiver plugged into the back side of the battery grip. That usually makes it a little bit easier to attach anything from a USB standpoint, having that on the back versus having to plug it in on the bottom. So let me know what you think down in the comments. Which one sounds the best with the Pocket 3, the built-in microphones or the M2S? All right, so we're gonna do our range test for the Lark M2S. We do have the wind muff installed because it's kind of a breezy day here. Noise reduction's not on, no post-processing or anything. We're just gonna start out at 10 meters away from the camera and go out as far as I can go here. All right, we're starting at just 10 meters away from the camera. Shouldn't have any problem here. Honestly, this is as far as I ever need to be away from my camera, but that's not what we're here to test. We're here to test the manufacturer's stated range and whether it works within that range, not whether it's reasonable to use it that far away from the camera. All right, now we're 25 meters away from the camera. We still should have no problem at this range. This is super short compared to the max stated range, but I am gonna turn around, turn my back to the camera, put an obstruction on sight. That is when you start to get signal breakup. So while I was turned around there, did the signal break up at all? All right, and now we are at 50 meters away from the camera. Once again, still should definitely be working at this distance. The camera already looks super tiny and I'm uncomfortable leaving it this far away from me, but we're only at 50 meters away. I'm gonna turn my back and see if turned. Okay, so while my back was turned, did the signal break up there? Camera's still well short of its stated range, but how is it working at this distance? This is pushing the boundaries of what would be reasonable for everyday use cases, but how's it working? All right, I'm now all the way out at 150 meters away from the camera. This is just about as far as it can go here. How is the signal working at this distance? The manufacturer tests them in like perfect lab conditions, and these are not perfect conditions. Here's a quick sample of the M2S running into my iPhone 16 Pro Max. I'm using Blackmagic camera to record this, have the audio set to mono. Don't have noise reduction turned on yet, but we're going to test out the noise reduction here. I'm gonna start playing some traffic noise through the speakers that are behind me on my desk. All right, so here's the traffic noise playing with no noise reduction turned on. We've got a combination of constant and transient noises here. And now the noise reduction is turned on the low setting. So this is how it sounds with the noise reduction on low and the same level of traffic noise playing. How's it handling both that constant noise and those transient noises? Once again, here is the noise reduction turned off. And now here is the noise reduction on the high setting. Noise reduction is turned on and it has been changed to the high setting. So same thing, does it remove more of that traffic sound? There was a pretty loud horn there. Did it remove transient sound of that horn? Once again, here's the noise reduction turned back off. And now the high noise reduction is turned back on. So once again, here's what that sounds like. I'm guessing I wouldn't use the high mode unless I was in a live setting and had no choice, but let me know in the comments, did you hear a quality difference between the low setting and the high setting? All right, now I just wanted to point out something about the original Lark M2 and also give you a sample compared to the original solution for discrete on-talent audio, the lavalier microphone. First, let's talk about the original Lark M2 because we shouldn't discount it as being not discrete here. One thing you can do if you're going for that discrete appearance is to turn it inside out and put the magnet on the outside, which I have done over here on my left side, your right side. As long as your subject is wearing a clothing layer that's not like a big thick coat, you can put the mic on the inside and then you could always cover the Hollyland logo on the magnet and now you've got a very discreet mic. As you can hear, it still picks up sound quite well this way as long as you don't have that really thick layer of clothing. Because of the magnet, you also have good flexibility with where you can place the mic, more flexibility than where you can place the M2S, because you don't have to clip it on the edge of something. And now let's talk about the solution for discrete audio that's existed for decades, the lavalier microphone. I'm actually wearing a lav mic that you can't see. I'm wearing a Deity W Lav Pro under my shirt. It's stuck to me using a little sticky felt pad that protects the mic from the rustling of clothing. And I've got it connected to the transmitter from a Rode Wireless Pro microphone kit. It's recording internally in 32-bit float, so I don't even have to use the receiver here if I don't want to. There's a huge variety of lavalier mics on the market, both affordable and expensive, as well as extra small options that are great for hiding under clothing or under hat brims or even in longer hair. There's just tons of places that you can put a lavalier microphone besides the usual, clip it onto your shirt, kind of like the way you do with the M2S. All right, now now we're switching over to a processed audio sample of all three of these microphones now so that you can hear how they sort of clean up in post. I'll be applying some noise reduction, a high pass filter, some EQ adjustments, and compression in post to the audio from each of the microphones as we continue switching back and forth. If you consider your options here, both the original Lark M2 and the Lark M2S are very simple to use. Just take them out of the case, connect the receiver to a camera or phone, check your levels, and hit record. You don't get a backup internal audio recording, but you do get very high ease of use. With a kit like the Rode Wireless Pro, the DJI Mic 2, or the Rode Wireless Go Gen 3, you do get a bigger transmitter, but it accepts a 3.5mm input from a lav mic or any 3.5mm mic. And you get the 32-bit float internal recording, which is great to have in case your signal breaks up to the wireless receiver. However, you do sacrifice a little bit in terms of ease of use because you have to take a little more time to get wired up with a lav mic. And of course, you have the price difference. But the point here is that if you're looking for a discrete mic to wear, the M2S is not your only option. However, both it and the original M2 are one of the more wallet-friendly options out there that won't call too much attention to themselves. All right, now before we talk about my overall impressions of the Lark M2S, let's do a little more comparing to wireless mic options that are targeting a similar use case for content creation. I am currently wearing transmitters for the Lark M2S, the original Lark M2, the Rode Wireless Micro, and the DJI Mic Mini. I'll put the prices of all of these up on the screen so you can see the price ranges that we have here. They're all within a relatively tight price range. I'm recording all of these at the same time by connecting the receivers over USB to my MacBook, and I'm recording them all using an app called Audio Hijack. All right, starting with the original Lark M2 here, this was one of the first mic kits to offer the tiny button style transmitters that are super easy to use and have become more popular. They also offer multiple versions of the kit, just like the M2S. In fact, I think it's the same versions of the kits where you can get basically just one receiver, exactly the one you need, or you can get a combo kit that has everything. The pricing on it has come down a little bit since it originally came out. Probably you can find it a little less than the Lark M2S, which is newer. The difference here is that you can record the stereo 2-channel output over USB with the M2S, not the original Lark M2. You can only do that with the Lark M2 original over the camera receiver's 3.5mm output. So that's the one significant difference between the two. Next, we have the Rode Wireless Micro, which comes in just a little bit higher price at $149. However, the difference here is that it has the smallest charging case of any of them because the only way you can get this is with a USB receiver, either USB-C or Lightning. There is no camera receiver available that has a 3.5mm output. So it all fits right in this teeny tiny little case that's not much bigger than an Apple AirPods case because of that tiny receiver. Now, it does come with two transmitters. It does have some of the same features and some not of the same features. The Rode was really going for ease of use here. It does have auto gain assist, which helps control clipping. It also brings up quiet audio, which means you don't need to worry about setting the gain, which is nice. It does not have any type of noise reduction, and the transmitter is a little bit bigger than both the Lark M2 and certainly the M2S. And then lastly, we have the DJI Mic Mini, which is the most full-featured mic kit here while also still being a relatively small transmitter. It is significantly smaller than DJI's Mic 2, which has internal recording. The DJI Mic Mini does not have internal recording, just like the rest of these. It is priced a little bit higher at $169. It's the most expensive option here. However, it also has some features that these others don't have. It has clipping protection. It has a clip guard feature, which you can turn on and off. It has a low cut filter, which you can turn on and off, in addition to the noise reduction, which has 2 levels. Plus it has a safety track that you can turn on. It also has a direct Bluetooth connection that you can use with DJI's cameras like the Pocket 3, the Action 4, and the Action 5. So it's just got some more features to it, which sort of, I think, do justify the higher price point. So let me know what you think of all of these microphones that are sort of competing in the same realm as the Lark M2S. Let me know which one you liked the sound of best down in the comments. All right, now for some pros and cons and my overall recommendation. First up, in terms of pros, we have the obvious one here. Hollyland gave us what we asked for. The transmitters are discreet. They have no visible branding and they are tiny. Now, that's not something you can say about a lot of the 2.4 gigahertz content creation focused mics on the market, at least not the ones that have transmitters with built-in microphones. At the same time, they've also kept the M2S very simple to use. It's basically the same as the original M2. It's also a pretty good value for the price. For $139 for this kit version, you get both of the receivers, and that's less in terms of price than the Rode Wireless Micro, which does not have a camera receiver, only a USB receiver. And it's also much less than the DJI Mic Mini, which does have some more features and everything, but it's also not as discreet. It's not this tiny. Next, I love that they added the 2-channel recording over the USB receiver. This was a significant missing feature in the Lark M2, which you do get in both the Rode Wireless Micro and the DJI Mic Mini. So having that now, it sort of levels the playing field. Now the controls, they're all simple. Nothing is overcomplicated in terms of pairing or changing settings. However, I do have kind of one con about the controls, but we'll get to that in a minute. I also like that they've included the pass-through power delivery port on the USB receiver for your phone or your tablet, because that was a missing feature on the Rode Wireless Micro. Now the last pro is kind of a soft pro here. It's the battery life of the transmitters. At 9 hours, it should definitely last long enough for a day of content creation. However, it is worth noting that 9 hours is no longer cutting edge for these wireless mic kits. In fact, the original Lark M2 is rated for 10 hours of use time for the transmitter, and the DJI Mic Mini transmitter is 11 hours. However, I'm still counting it as a pro because 9 hours is better than the 6 or 7 hours of life that mics like this used to get just a couple of years ago, and it's still up there in terms of ranking against the competition. It's just not best of the best. All right, before we move on to cons, I have a few things that I consider to be in the neutral category, meaning you might count them as a pro or a con depending on your point of view or your priorities. First, just a quick comment about audio quality. I'm not counting this in the pros because honestly, I didn't find the audio quality of the M2S to be significantly better or significantly worse than the original Lark M2 or the DJI Mic Mini. In terms of general quality, it's not like one of them sticks out as the worst or the best. I think in most cases, they're all perfectly usable in terms of sound quality, so it's going to be very subjective as to which one you like the best. Next up in the neutral category, we have the range performance. At first, this is going to sound like a con. In my testing, the range performance of the transmitter was only kind of so-so compared to Hollyland's claimed 300-meter range, and especially competitors like the DJI Mic Mini. Check out my review video of the DJI Mic Mini if you want to see how that performed in the range test. But to sum it up, the Mic Mini just worked better at longer distances than the Lark M2S. But the reason I'm not saying this is a con is because for a lot of creators out there, you're never going to be 100 meters or more away from your camera. You're probably never going to be even 50 meters away from your camera. If you are, then the range performance would be questionable here, honestly. But for most people, it performs fine within 50 meters. And that's going to be plenty of space for the vast majority of content creators out there. All right, now let's talk about a couple of cons for the Lark M2S. First, let me get back to something I alluded to earlier about controlling the settings. While they did keep the controls on both the camera receiver and the USB receiver and the transmitters very simple, there are settings that you have to control in the app, which is okay if you are recording into a device that you can use the app on, meaning a phone or a tablet. However, if you're using the Lark M2S with the camera receiver, for example, the first thing you have to do before you actually record is plug one of the USB receivers into a device that has the app, go into the app, change your settings, then you can connect it to the camera receiver. You can't just, kind of go straight to your camera, which that could be a little frustrating. Now, related to the features, another con here is that there are actually some missing features in the Lark M2S and also actually in the original Lark M2 that other wireless mic kits provide. First of all, there is no safety track or clipping protection feature here. Both the Rode Wireless Micro and the DJI Mic Mini have features to help make sure you don't encounter distortion in your audio. The Lark M2S doesn't have any feature like that, so if you set your gain level too high and you don't realize it, you're going to have distortion in your audio and it'll basically be ruined, and it does nothing to help you prevent that. So you really just have to make sure you always double check your audio levels before you hit that record button. Now, it's not the end of the world because, again, this is coming in at a lower price than those competitors that have those features, but it would be nice to see. And one other feature that it does not have, which competitors do have, there is no low-cut filter for removing low-frequency noise like the rumble of traffic or something like that. Again, this isn't a huge deal, especially if you don't use these mics in any type of live situation. As long as you're recording a video that you're going to edit later, you can always apply a low-cut filter or a high-pass filter in post. Now, the rest of the cons I noticed are all related to physical attributes of the M2S, and they may or may not be a big deal to you. With the camera receiver, for example, it's not totally secure in some cold shoe mounts because it's not a clip style. It doesn't apply any pressure to the actual mount. It just slides in which means if the cold shoe isn't tight, it also slides right out. And it did slide right out of a few cold shoe mounts that are on my camera cages when I was trying it out, so that is one little annoying downside. This wasn't a problem with the original Lark M2 because the camera receiver there was actually a clip, so it was applying its own pressure. Now with the transmitters, there are two physical things here that come at the expense of being so discreet. The first issue here is just kind of a small annoyance as well. It's the button on the transmitter. It's on the part of the transmitter that goes behind your clothing or whatever you're clipping it to. So if you start recording and then you step away from your camera, like I am now, and then you decide you want to turn on or off noise reduction, you can't press that button that's on the receiver because, well, now you can't reach it. And now I got to take the mic off, press the button, make sure the light turns green, and then put the mic back on. You can't just like glance down and press a button that's on the side of the transmitter because that part of it's not on the outside like it is with the original Lark M2. Probably sounds like it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's just one of those things that the more times you have to do that, the more annoying it gets. Now, a slightly bigger con related to this physical design is the limited placement choices that you have with the M2S. I know this probably sounds like complaining about the main feature of the M2S is something that we even asked for, because the point here was to make it discreet. But because of the clip style design, it limits where you can place it. I can't put it on the outside or inside of my shirt further down away from my chin unless I'm wearing a shirt like this that buttons up. If I was wearing a t-shirt, it would have to go up on the collar. You just don't have the same freedom of placement with it that you have with the original Lark M2 because that has a magnet that you can put anywhere. Now, to be fair, generally speaking, there's pretty much always somewhere that you're going to be able to place it that will work fine in most scenarios. You just can't be quite as creative with where you can put it. Now, when you're outdoors, you also really don't have a choice but to use the wind muff because you can't turn the mic around. If you did turn it around, first of all, the big part would be on the outside, but also the microphone capsule faces outward. It doesn't face up. So that means if you did turn it around, it would be against your body. All right, so with all of those pros, neutral things, and cons considered, who is the Lark M2S for? Well, realistically, you would have to be okay with the placement options. That's priority number one. If you want to be able to stick your microphone anywhere using magnets, then the Lark M2S, it's not the best choice out there. Of course, you do also have to be okay without having a backup recording in the transmitter. That's not a feature that's generally available at this price point, so I'm assuming you're okay with that if you're looking at microphone kits like the M2 or M2S. Now, beyond that, you really just need to consider if the features meet your needs or if anything I mentioned in the neutral items in the cons section would be a deal breaker for you and your use case. Nothing I experienced would make me say definitely don't buy this. It's just a matter of whether anything would rule it out for you. So that'll do it for this video. Let me know what you think of the Lark M2S. Let me know if you picked one up for yourself and how you're liking it. Don't forget to subscribe to the Semi-Pro Tech & Gear channel, and while you're here, check out one of these videos. I know you'll enjoy it. Thanks everybody. See you next time.